There have been reports of Filipino casualties in the failed coup. They have been advised to stay indoors for now. Most of the 3,500 Filipinos in Istanbul and Ankara are employed as household workers.
Meanwhile, over in the U.S., protesters gathered outside the home of Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, calling on the religious leader to leave the country. The small protests almost turned violent. Some of the protesters engaged words with police officers trying to enforce the order. The protesters say they are just showing support for Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Earlier this year, Erdogan had branded Gulen's religious movement as a terrorist group. Gulen has been in the U.S. since 1999 in a self-imposed exile.
Let's get an update on the situation in Turkey. Philippine Ambassador Maria Rowena Sanchez joins us on the line for that. Good afternoon, Ambassador Sanchez, and welcome to ANC.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, first off, reconfirm it to us. No Filipino has been reported hurt or affected by the coup attempt, the failed coup attempt in Turkey.
Yes, that's right. The Filipinos resident in Turkey are all safe and accounted for. I suppose yesterday they spent most of the day resting after the very stressful night that we all spent while we were here. We did assist some of our kababayans who were, well, not caught, but actually delayed in catching their flights back to Manila, because for a while the airport operations had ceased because at one point the soldiers were at the airport. But in a matter of hours, the flights were moving, and so they were able to leave, but delayed.
Yes,
but they were quite safe otherwise.
Yes, that's good to know, Ambassador Sanchez. What's the guidance to overseas Filipino workers and other Filipino expats in Turkey in the light of the botched coup attempt?
Yes, well, thankfully, life is getting back to normal in both cities, Istanbul first, but in Ankara, as of yesterday evening, it was already back to normal. In fact, the people were out in the streets celebrating the fact that the coup attempt failed. As far as our kababayans are concerned, even if this did not happen, we had always consistently advised them to avoid places where there were, big crowds or demonstrations or rallies, because of course that is a place where much. Things could happen where, they would not be able to find a place for safety if, in case the crowds become too rowdy. And yes, well, not so much unruly, but too festive. And not all of our kababayans speak Turkish, so it is always best that when there is such a huge crowd, to avoid them.
Yes, Ambassador Sanchez.
So that is what happened.
Yes, Ambassador Sanchez, we were talking to our correspondent in the earlier shows, and she was telling us that Filipinos had been advised to stay indoors. Now, is that advice still up?
I'm not for this morning. The whole day. Usually the days are quite safe. In fact, one of our kababayans went to work yesterday, and she said that the streets in Istanbul were quite empty. During the day, the streets were clear. There were no signs of the turmoil the night before. So during the day, I believe it's quite safe for us to go around and I think that's exactly what happened. People went out to shop, but in the evenings, that is when we advise people just to stay home for the meantime. So today, I'm sure that our kababayans will go to church and do the usual things, and at night it will be quite wise, I think, for them for all of us to stay home.
Ambassador Sanchez, considering that this has been a second attempt in Turkey, the first one being the airport attacks, has any Filipino expressed wishes to be repatriated?
No. In fact, we have seen a number of Filipinos coming from other countries seeking employment here. And that is, of course, something that we are discussing with our leaders. Unlike our kababayans who come straight from Manila, where they receive adequate counseling and are covered or protected by our laws as well as the laws of Turkey. Some of them have arrived from other parts of the world seeking employment, but are not really fully protected by both laws of the laws of our country and that of Turkey.
Yes.
So there are some like that. So that is the opposite. In fact, I have not received any word of anyone requesting for assistance to go home. But even if there is, as I mentioned before, we are quite ready to extend assistance to anyone who seeks that kind of repatriation.
Okay, Ambassador Sanchez, considering Turkey's sort of a gateway to Europe, a lot of Filipino tourists go to Turkey to connect to the other destinations in Europe. What's the advice to Filipino tourists stopping over the country?
Well, right now, of course, it would be wise not to proceed at this time. But in a couple of days, everything will be back to normal. Even during the attack at the Istanbul airport, tourists started coming a few days later, and I must say that I don't claim to be an expert on Turkey, but I have been to the different heritage sites in Turkey, of which they are very proud, and they are truly protected. All the visitors are protected from not just whatever maybe criminal, but also from being ill or being duped into certain accommodations, etc. So the Turkish government is very protective of their heritage sites, their tourist destinations, and not only that, but the tourist guides themselves who will be bringing the package tours around are really very qualified and very passionate about their country, and that has been my experience.
Ambassador Caroline Howard here. I sense that much from what you told us yesterday in our interview, and you were not categorical as to say that things were back to normal, and I'm sensing the same thing today, that you're still issuing that word of caution to Filipinos. But nonetheless, just a sentiment on your end, this must come with some sense of relief as well.
Oh yes, definitely. But throughout the attempt, the coup attempt, of course it was not easy, even for me, because it was not usual. No, it was a very unusual experience. Even if we were all indoors, we could hear the sound of the fighter jets and the military helicopters circling the city of Ankara, and the explosions and the gunfire could be heard, as well as the alarming sound of the sonic booms created by the fighter jets. And that was an unusual experience for all of us. And I'm not talking just about the Filipino community, but also the rest of the diplomatic community. Nevertheless, we did not have a sense that the government would not be able to bring things back to normal. Yeah, they managed it very well. But what was really amazing was to see the people responding to the call of the president to protect democracy. Those were his very words. And as I have said, it reminded me of our own people power, when the people take to the streets and really protect with a lot of passion and free will, really, to protect their freedom and democracy.
And in the
that
case
is
of
what we saw
Filipinos,
here.
and in the case of Filipinos and other nationalities, watching this from a safe distance is probably the best thing to do. And again, that call goes out there. Thank you very much, Ambassador to Turkey, Maria Rowena Sanchez.
Thank you very much.